What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Bronx Pinstripes Show. Got a hell of an episode for you today. We talked to Teacher Man 1986, Judge's hitting coach, Richard Schenck. I know.
Call him Schenck.
Schenck. Yeah, no, fascinating conversation. We recorded that towards the end of last week, and that portion of the episode will take place, sort of in the middle of this. I think we talked to him for like 25, 30 minutes. And I know you spoke with him, Scott, like back in 2018. And I remember listening to that episode, and I remember thinking like, oh, this guy is definitely opinionated. And boy, did he bring the heat in this one, and a lot of interesting stuff. Scott and I are going to react to that portion of it later in the pod.
I couldn't believe it was 2018, by the way. I could because I knew it was after the Judge.
Well, it was between the
16.
17-18 season. I think it was in the winter 17-18 is when you spoke with him.
So, because he worked with him before the 17 season, and that was a big deal. But yeah, the things that we learned were interesting, and I have a feeling a lot of Yankee fans have no idea about any of these things. So there's definitely some pretty significant takeaways for the relationship. But yeah, he's a polarizing guy in the hitting community too. But as if you follow the hitting community, I nerd out on that stuff as far as like mechanics and swing and pitching mechanics and things like that. So I pay attention to that the back end community and there's a lot of analytics involved, but there's also a lot of like just biomechanics and swing things. It's interesting, and everybody thinks they're right. And they go down swinging with the fact that they are absolutely correct in the way that they are teaching. So it's interesting. It's an interesting community.
We got a lot to talk about before we get to that. I was with my family over the weekend doing a little Hanukkah celebration.
Happy Hanukkah.
Thank you. And my dad got the Ohtani update on his phone. Like, I wasn't looking at my phone. So my dad got the update and asked me, Ohtani signed with the Dodgers. How much do you think it was for? And I said $50 million a year. And when he said $700 million over 10 years, I almost shit my pants. Then come to find out, $68 million of the 70 AAV is deferred, and this has just sent the baseball world into an absolute frenzy. This entire saga, from Ohtani keeping everything a secret to the city of Toronto shutting down, thinking that he was on a plane from Anaheim to Toronto like last Friday, and they were going to do like this press conference.
I love the plane tracking graphics.
Oh my God.
I kind of mocked one up on Bronx Pinstripes too, but hilarious.
So funny. Like the what are they called? The Mounties? The police?
The guys on the horses?
Yeah, but what do they call? What does Canada call their police force? It's like Mounties or something.
Sure.
Anyway, they like boarded the plane like when it landed. Like, okay, we're gonna have to escort, and it was the guy from Shark Tank. Like, the whole thing is freaking hilarious. Toronto, and it's not even like Toronto has been an embarrassing franchise because they've been pretty good and they have a lot of good players and they've signed some free agents. But you had no chance at Ohtani.
Ohtani switched his phone with the tracking beacon with the guy from Shark Tank to throw him off the case. That it's funny, there are some Toronto fans, Johnny specifically, losing his absolute ever loving mind on Twitter, and I appreciate his passion. From standing on the side watching it, hilarious, honestly hilarious. When you see how deep emotionally invested and how deep fan bases get with a particular player signing or the thought of a particular player signing, it's pretty wild, because the roller coaster of emotions, especially when you have Twitter these days, where it's really difficult to understand who's saying what and what's valid and what's not. It's a complete Jedi mind fuck. It really is.
The whole thing was just bizarre. Like, I know he's a private guy and wanted to keep the things quiet. Do you think part of the reason why he wanted the whole thing to be quiet is because his idea was to defer so much of the money, and that he was presenting that as an option to teams, and his team knew, Ohtani's team knew, like, if this gets out here before it's actually just a done deal, that's going to cause some problems, because we've never seen anything like this where I think it's 97 point something percent of the money is deferred.
Steve Phillips and Bobby Bonilla are the one that you're looking at, but it's different.
No. That was $1 million a year deferred, not $68 million deferred. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
It's apples and oranges. And I know Mookie Betts has a ton of deferred money from the Dodgers as well, but it's a couple $1,000,000 a year. It's not $68 million. And what this means is the luxury tax implications are so that the Dodgers are not completely crippled by the luxury tax. Their hit is $46 million. And we were chatting beforehand, like how the math formula to figure out the luxury tax number is way beyond my comprehension. It has something to do with the present value of the deal, which is
it is the present value, and they associate the present value of the deal, I think, with a 4%, a 4% multiplier on there that gives you, because more money in the future is worth more than money today.
No, money today is worth more than money in the future.
No, they have to account for inflation. That's not true.
But that's what but you said it opposite. $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow.
$1. So that's why, no, today's value of 46 million is less than the 70 million of it, because the money is deferred, because the money is going to be more expensive in the future. So they take away 4% essentially from the total contract to apply it for the luxury tax is right. The roundabout math. Whether I said it one way or another, that's what it is.
$700 million over the 20 years, which it is actually only worth $460 million. Whereas if he just got $700 million today, that would be worth $700 million. But since he's not getting it until 20 years from now, it's actually worth $460 million, right, which is how you get to the 46 million luxury tax number, which I was not aware of. I thought the luxury tax number was just a simple math equation, 700 divided by 10, and his tax hit was going to be $70 million, whether you defer 100% of it or 0% of it. But that's not the case. And what that has led to is that the Dodgers can still, I mean, let's also be real. The Dodgers could pay $70 million in luxury tax and still sign whoever the hell they want. So could the Yankees, so could the Red Sox, so could all these big market teams. But I know they don't want to. And so this has just it's been wild. People be like, this is unfair. This is a loophole. How can the Dodgers do this? Owners are going to reject this.
It's within the guidelines of the CBA or the CBA, but the CBA and the luxury tax guidelines. So it's perfectly legal to do in the way that they did it. And I think that this one is more unique because of who he is and his marketability off the field as well. You're looking at a return on investment that is happening significantly off the field as well. So that was the other thing that I was surprised about. And clearly the Dodgers made it a priority to lock him up without any opt-outs or they want him to be a Dodger for life, because that means something. That means something to the bottom line significantly, because of, what dollar amount, the amount of money that he could bring in from Japan. He's basically dominating a market over there. The Dodgers are a huge deal. Like, their market share in a country that is, crazy about baseball, with the best player that's ever come out of that country now is a Los Angeles Dodger, and forever will be a Los Angeles Dodger. So that's a big deal. That's a big deal to them, and it's worth a lot of money, and that's what they're paying for too.
The Dodgers already were a popular team in Japan because of Hideo Nomo. Remember, he signed in the 90s. I'm
threw a no-hitter as well.
Hideo Nomo, yeah, he was one of the first of the modern era Japanese players to come over and sign with the Dodgers. So the Dodgers, I mean, obviously they're a popular global franchise, but they were already a popular team in Japan, and now they're just going to be taken to a whole other level.
And the other thing about this is we definitely talked through this contract a number of times, and the fact that, the unprecedented nature of him as a two-way player is going to be reflected in the contract. And if you look at this, obviously this year he's not pitching, but if you're getting the type of player that he is on the offensive side and the type of player that he is on the pitching side, split it down the middle, you're looking at a $35 million player on both sides of the ball.
Yes and no, though. Because he's not getting $70 million a year. He's getting $46 million a year of real dollars.
He's getting $700 million in real life. He's getting that money. He is getting that money.
So I don't know. But the present value of that is $460 million.
According to the luxury tax.
Yeah, no, according to also inflation.
So he's, this year is a $46 million offensive player. Next year he's a $46 million offensive and pitching. And that's a significant discount against the luxury tax.
That also very conveniently is just a little bit higher than Mike Trout's AAV, which I think is like 44 and a half or something like that, or 42 and a half.
I don't think the AAV to this is going to set any precedent on this deferred payment. I think
You don't think so?
No, not at all.
You don't think you don't think Scott Boras and Juan Soto this coming offseason are going to say, okay, so the present value of the Ohtani deal is $460 million, so we're starting at $461 million.
I think he was starting at $500 million anyway. And if you're looking at an offensive player and what a contract as far as like the number goes, I think this contract is so out of left field that you can't set a precedent based off the AAV.
And I agree with that, because also, I forget, did you just say this, that Ohtani makes so much money in off-field endorsements that he can take all of this deferred money? Like, the reason this has never happened before is because every player that has come before Ohtani has not been willing to take only $2 million a year in salary and defer it because they want their money. Yeah, they might be making off-field endorsements, but it's a couple $1,000,000 a year. It's not $50 million a year in endorsements. That is reserved for the rarest of rare athletes. Your superstars from the EPL. Maybe at the height of like, Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes or Peyton Manning, like height of NFL quarterbacks are making tens of millions of dollars in endorsements. No baseball player is making tens of millions of dollars in endorsements other than Ohtani.
I don't know how much Judge is making, but Judge has definitely increased it.
Let's
on
Google
that.
My guess is $5 million max.
I don't know if you get even just like a Nike deal, considering they're on the jerseys now, it may be worth more than that because of the cleats. I don't know, but the other
$4 million.
But you look at Ohtani, and yeah, he can take the million. He could take 50 is just an arbitrary number that you're throwing out there. As far as
I saw that reported. I forget where I saw that. I think I saw it on Twitter that someone like said the estimates for his off-field endorsements are $50 million a year.
Okay. Well, yes, he's got the ability to do that. Plus, I promise you that there are a number of tax implications as well for him deferring this money for.
Yeah, he doesn't have to pay California state tax once he leaves California.
So he's not going to be at the 10-year mark. His contract will be over. So he's dealing with another situation where, because he's how old is he right now?
We have this right here. So Ohtani is he 28, 29? So Ohtani is $40 million in endorsements. The screenshot that Ilya just dropped in. The next highest on this list is Judge or I guess Trout's at $5 million. Judge is at $4 million. How did Trout make $5 million? Who's paying Mike Trout to endorse anything?
People in California. $5 million. He probably has long-standing deals.
Yeah. Ohtani's 29 years old. So I just think for everyone whining that,
this will be his last contract. This will be his last contract. Maybe he'll add on, 1 or 2 with the Dodgers at the end of the
see how if he's still a good DH. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're looking at the deferred money is outside of the contract term, or maybe it overlaps by 1 year. I think or is it deferred completely out?
Completely deferred.
So he's then no longer going to be working in the state of California at that point.
Yeah. He'll go back to Japan or go to a non-state income tax, Texas or California.
Yeah.
Buy a house, Texas or Florida. Buy a house in Florida and live there. So for everyone whining that the Dodgers found a loophole, Ohtani presented this to all the teams he met with. The Giants also supposedly offered him the same deferred $700 million, and he chose the Dodgers. So clearly he wanted to stay in LA and play with the Dodgers.
He was always going to be a Dodger.
Yeah. I saw a clip on the Yes Network Twitter of Jack Curry and Flaherty sort of saying that this seems unfair and everything. Do you happen to see that clip?
No, I didn't see it. Unfair.
It's just it's not unfair. And it's the Yankees could have done this. I don't know. Maybe this was never offered to the Yankees, or maybe the Yankees never wanted to pay Ohtani because they already have Stanton and they were going after Soto. I actually think that made sense for them this offseason. But do you think the Yankees would have been willing to do this deal?
Yeah, I think they would have been willing to do it. I don't think Ohtani had New York on his radar at all.
Right. And I don't know why
that was clear from the first negotiations.
Why was he even discussing with the Blue Jays? That seemed out of nowhere. It's an East Coast team and it's a Canada team. It made sense.
Because they had money. They had money and he needed leverage, I'm sure.
Yankees,
you had to have somebody in the conversation. Yeah, but there's a lot of you got to take that seriously, because the Yankees were going after Juan Soto. So that was a piece that you needed to consider. And 2, it wasn't real. Toronto was potentially real because
because of a
you could
flight
make
from
it.
Anaheim.
Well,
to
you could also make it. There were conversations there. Like it's not like it wasn't considered. There was a consideration.
He met with Boston.
Yeah. So I mean, but again, is Boston really going to pay that? Probably not.
No, and
That's not their MO.
Boston is cutting salary. They didn't pay,
but very
Mookie
clearly
Betts.
Toronto would have.
Sure. And maybe the Blue Jays also offered him the $700 million deferred. And like you just said, he was always going to be a Dodger.
He was always going to be
as long as the Dodgers met with what his asking price was, he was going to be a Dodger.
That's the thing. Like this really wasn't a negotiation. This is what we need. And
set your price.
And if you can match it, I'm going to go play where I want to play. That's it. That's exactly how this went down. And Ohtani signed with the team that he wanted to sign with. He's clearly comfortable in a living out there. He doesn't nothing in his lifestyle. Really
doesn't have to move. Right, yeah. Doesn't have to move. I don't expect this to be a precedent. Like I saw also some people being like, "Oh, could the Yankees get creative with the Juan Soto contract?" Like Juan Soto's not going to take 97% of his money deferred.
He also doesn't have the marketability of an Ohtani.
No, he's also a Scott Boras client. You think Scott Boras is allowing his client to sign for 97% deferred? Hell no.
So it's interesting, this graphic. I mean, I didn't realize how
big
significantly difference the delta is between these guys, but it's significant. So it just shows you the marketability of
10 times
Major League Baseball players in the US. And across different countries that are not Japan. It's not significant in comparison. It's not significant. So yeah, Ohtani has just a ton of leverage and a ton of flexibility in the way that he can do things.
Shohei Ohtani on this graphic. Where'd you guys pull this from? Is this from MLB? Looks like a screenshot from maybe MLB or Spot Track. Shohei Ohtani in endorsements, 40 million. Max Scherzer, 2 million. Verlander, 1 million. Judge, 4 million. Trout, 5 million. Anthony Rendon. Why is he on this list? $250,000.
It's a total earnings.
Oh, total. List. It's a total earnings thing. God, Anthony Rendon makes $38 million a year. Holy crap, Anaheim. What are you doing? Sportico it was from. So the whole thing was wild. I definitely think that, he was always going to be a Dodger. And poor Giants can't get their guy. And they have to settle for Jung-Hoo Lee at 6 years, $113 million, plus the $18 million in posting fee. I know you dropped in our chat last night. Like, that's a much bigger contract than anyone thought he was going to get.
The original conversations around him from when Ilya and I were looking at him for the GM plan was like 10 million at 50. And then we overpaid thinking that was going to be probably a little low. I don't forget where we ended up, like 65, maybe something like that. It was, we paid a little extra just for, to cover our butts on that episode. But yeah, the fact that he's getting 113, I saw 120 originally, but that was including the posting fee.
That's the posting fee as well. I think it brings it up to, 120.
So what is that? Like 17 million?
It's 18 million. 18? It's 18 million AAV, which is right around what Benintendi signed for last offseason. And I think those are good player comps.
They are. And he plays center. He's a better defender, I think, than Benintendi. Because
Benintendi's a plus but
Lee plays center. Lee plays all over. If you believe what you're seeing over there, he's got plus athleticism. I think he's more athletic than Benintendi, and he's younger. Yeah, he's 25. Yeah. He's a good player. He's a good player, and he fit what the Yankees needed. Obviously, the Yankees went out and did something different, and with Verdugo, and with Verdugo, you get a similar type of bat to ball skill, not as hyped up as Lee. As Lee's like a elite bat to ball guy. I think he struck out like 30 times in KBO last year, something crazy. So you're looking at a guy that just he gets on base, makes a ton of contact, but he's not a centerpiece guy by any means. And the Giants are trying to assemble a bunch of not main pieces, but like side pieces, and see if a bunch of side pieces can equal a one very good team together. And it's been done before.
It's tough to do.
You don't have, there's a lot of areas where that can go bad.
And the Yankees fail with that. Like when we were talking about their
they choose the wrong players.
Yeah.
They choose non-complimentary players when they try to do that sometimes. But this year, look, there's a lot of complement and a lot of balance.
I think an interesting thing with the deferred is when we talk about Yamamoto, though, because I'm sure he's making big money in endorsements. And I think he's another guy, while he's not on Ohtani's level, brings a level of attention from Japan and a level of revenue from Japan if you sign that player. Like I know the Yankees have experienced this before with Hideki Arabu. He didn't work out, and then of course Matsui. Like
Matsui for sure. I don't know how much Arabu brought over, but yeah,
big. Really? Yes. Arabu was massive coming from Japan. And I remember I never actually did a history episode about Arabu, but he was on my list of things. So I did a bit of research on him. When he signed with the Yankees, that was a gigantic deal in Japan.
Yeah. He's a fascinating character,
very
tragic character,
sad, yeah. Very sad.
But yeah, no, it's interesting when you look at over the years, you know, what things, how things have progressed. And obviously now with digital media the way it is, it's never been higher. You've never been able to capitalize more with the access to games, with the access to you know, inside things. There's just you can essentially show the entire life of Ohtani now anywhere in the world, and that's significantly valuable, especially if you're as far away and it's not as far from obviously the West Coast with Japan, so geographically it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and like if the Yankees are serious about signing Yamamoto, now there's talks like $300 million is what he's going to get. Like it escalated from the low 200s to 300 plus in a matter of 2 or 3 weeks. And I don't know, like are they going to extend themselves to that? Because that's going to be a $30+ million luxury tax hit to sign him. And now you're talking about between Soto, Judge, Cole, and if they get Yamamoto, not to mention, like, you've got the top 5-6 players on the roster accounting for $200 million of luxury tax.
Yamamoto is not Ohtani by any stretch of the imagination, but if you look on the pitching side, you could make an argument that they are closer. But the endorsement side of things, I don't know what the market is for the endorsement side of things for Yamamoto. I mean, he's a big deal over there. He's still very young.
No, nothing's on Ohtani's level.
It's not on Ohtani's level. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm wondering now that this contract has been put out there for Ohtani, does it change conversations with Yamamoto at all? Did Yamamoto's camp have any idea about, you know, what the deferred payment structure could be? It's interesting to see how this maybe throws a little bit of a wrench in the negotiations and how contracts are structured for a guy like him who does have the marketability in 2 different places, because it makes it very interesting. And wouldn't be surprised if there was something about that.
I don't expect him to do a Ohtani type thing where 2 million of the, you know, 2 million salary and then the rest deferred. But is it, if he's making 35 million a year, is 17.5 of the 35 deferred or something like that to get that luxury tax number to a more realistic level and to bring the total value in the 300.
So that's, if we're looking for a precedent, and we're looking for, because as we know, baseball and every other sport are copycat leagues. Everybody does monkey see, monkey do. It happens all the time. Happens, you know, every single year. If you're looking for a precedent with this, just the structure of the deferred money for a guy that has marketability that's a significant increase in marketability as well. That I could see this happening more often, and you know, deferred payments becoming more of a thing. I don't think the numbers with Ohtani necessarily would be precedent just because he's such a unicorn, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw more of these deferred payment structures, just similar to how we had all the player opt-outs. What did Boris call it? The honey pot, smoke pot, steam pot, something pot of contract that he had.
Yep. Yeah.
The pot.
The pot. He's smoking pot. So I guess the Dodgers are very close to getting Glasnow and Margot in a trade. Interesting to see if they're still in on Yamamoto. I expect them to still sign Yamamoto, by the way. I feel like part of the reason Ohtani went to them and been like, this is the deal you're going to give me, so you can then go sign Yamamoto. I don't
know if it's necessarily Yamamoto though, because that's an interesting dynamic. If you're Yamamoto, do you want to be with the Dodgers, behind the shadow of Ohtani?
Sure. Sure.
Or you could make an argument.
The attention's on him.
Yeah, but you could make an argument then that you could get more attention if you were in another big market.
Well,
if you were with the Yankees.
Oh, for sure. But as big as the Dodgers are, Yankees always greater than the Dodgers as far as attention globally.
For sure. So if all things are equal and you're looking at, do you want to go and be in Ohtani's shadow in LA and not be the first guy back in Japan talked about as a Dodger? Because Dodger
No,
Dodger
and
jerseys
if
are going to be
Yamamoto,
worn.
if that's important to Yamamoto, if he
Which everything it
legitimately
seems like he likes to be the attention
good,
guy. He likes the
good.
attention on him.
If he said if his mentality is no, I want to go to the Yankees so I can be a bigger deal than Ohtani. Sign me up for that. I like that mentality.
Yeah. Well, all reports about his personality is that he does like that. He likes the limelight. He pressure is a privilege. He's all about the big stage. So
But at
and
the
look,
same
man,
time,
I got to tell you, you asked if this puts the Yankees out the $300 million. I don't think it does at all, because I think the Yankees are so far deep in scouting this guy, and they've put in so much work with him that I think at this point they're not going to lose out on the dollar side. I don't think they're going to lose out on the dollar side, and I think they are gung ho about signing him. So,
at this point, you just went out and got obviously Soto and Verdugo. Why are you going to stop there? Like, why are you going to stop almost to make your team championship count?
Well, and also
that doesn't make any sense.
Well, and it gives you optionality moving forward too, because if Soto doesn't sign here, you have a top flight starting pitcher that is going to be locked up for however many years, and it gives you one more area that you don't have to go after next year, because next year is going to be interesting with the amount of contracts that are coming off the books and the amount of talent now that is coming off the books in New York, unless there's an extension that happens from now until then. But it's going to be what we're seeing all over again. With the Yankees needing to go out and sign people. If you sign Yamamoto on a long-term deal now, it alleviates a little bit of that pain.
I still think, don't you agree, Yamamoto will go to the highest bidder?
I think that, yeah, but again, like it's similar to Ohtani. I think it's going to be about his choice. I think the highest bidder is going to be probably more than one team. It's not going to be by much. When you get to the money that they're looking for, he probably has a few teams that are going to be paying right around that, and he's going to choose the spot that he wants.
Yeah. All right, a couple other things before we get to the interview. So Juan Soto was introduced via Zoom. Really, guys? Really? Juan Soto, you're going to introduce on Zoom? Did Soto not want to go to New York and have a press conference? Like, what's going on here? Can we get a real press conference for this guy?
Yeah, I when I saw that it was a Zoom press conference, I was very surprised. It's like,
I know it's not a free agent signing, but this is one of the biggest stars in baseball, and
yeah, we want to see him put the jersey on, do the whole thing, like get the photo ops with. It's strange that didn't happen. It's strange.
Yeah, I agree, and I was thinking, have they ever? So they did a press conference for Stanton when he was traded acquired via trade.
Yep.
They did a press conference for him. This was before COVID, so this like Zoom press conference were not a thing before COVID. So now this is an option. I get it, but like. This is Juan Soto we're talking about here. You want some buzz in your offseason, Yankees? Hold a fucking press conference in real life.
Yeah, I was really surprised that they did it that way. It almost like cheapened the experience.
Yeah. It doesn't feel
And maybe
real.
It has something to do with the fact that it's a 1-year deal and he's not going to be here for a long time. I don't know.
No. How about we show him some love, get him in the building, wine and dine him a little bit so he wants to stay with the Yankees in the offseason.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It was a strange. I wasn't expecting it for sure. And it made me like, he's just going to give a bunch of stupid answers. It's going to be much ado about nothing. Not that you get, I mean, the Stanton one, you got a lot of good juice because there was drama there.
Shit on Miami.
Yeah. There was a lot of drama happening there. There was no real drama with this particular move. So
they did. Yeah. And the guys just dropped in our chat, like A-Rod had a press conference and Jeter awkwardly put the jersey on him back in before the 2004 season. So you're not going to have any awkwardness between Judge and Soto. Have Judge there, the captain.
Yeah. Give me Judge and Soto together. Give me that picture up.
These are the two of the biggest hitters in baseball we're talking about. And by the way, I got shit. I made the mistake and I read some comments from our last episode. Everyone was like, why does Andrew keep calling Soto a top 3 player in baseball? He's not a top 3 player in baseball. Because I guess I referred to him as a top 3 player in baseball a number of times. So I looked it up. Juan Soto, since 2021, 3 full seasons of sample size here, ranks 4th in baseball for WRC+. So he's been the 4th most productive offensive player in baseball for the past 3 seasons. Judge is number 1, Yordan Alvarez is number 2, Shohei Ohtani is number 3, Juan Soto is number 4. And I understand total value of player WAR, Soto does not rank in the top 4 because his defensive WAR is not up there. I think Freddie Freeman actually bumps up higher, and a couple other guys bump up higher because they do play elite defense. But we're splitting hairs here at this point. Soto is a 25-year-old top 5 offensive player in baseball. Sorry, I called him a top 3. You happy with top 5?
Yeah, I think you were just predicting that he's going to be top 3 after this year.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Like, he's 25 years old, about to enter his prime. I'll take a bet that over the next 3 to 5 seasons, he will be a top 3 offensive player.
He's playing half his games at Yankee Stadium. That's going to be a significant piece for him too. His numbers are going to get inflated. He's built for that ballpark. So
you know what's also
nice?
This
is exactly
about
what the Yankees and Yankees fans have been pining for, is a power left-handed bat, and he's going to put up monster numbers.
Yeah. You know what's also nice about these numbers? Juan Soto, number 2 on here for most games played and most plate appearances in that time, but only behind Freddie Freeman. He plays. He's on the field. That's important.
That's a big deal. That's a big deal, especially for this team. Hopefully there's nothing, no juju in the, that's gonna affect that. But no, man, top 3, top 4, top 5. I don't give a shit. Like, the guy's one of the best offensive players. And when you match him up back to back with him and Judge, then
that's the best 1-2 punch in baseball.
It's right up there. It's right up there with what the Dodgers have. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the only other thing, so Soto was asked about a contract extension with the Yankees. He is a Boris guy, and he just says, they know where to call. So it's like, Boris takes his guys to free agency.
He's done extensions in the past. We there were some numbers about that. He's done them.
The one I remember is Jared Weaver.
Here's the thing with him, though. I feel like the market is set. We kind of understand what the market is for him, whether he goes out and hits 40, 50 home runs, kind of understand what the market is for him. So similar to Ohtani here, it's like a matter of just getting that number. If you can get that number, then, if this is the right place, then this is the right place. We're splitting hairs now when you get to that significant amount. And I know that it's just so much goddamn money that you gotta think about all the other aspects of this. Lifestyle, marketability off the field, winning, all of those things now I feel like are, for these top flight guys, are significantly deeper in play. And it's not just about the biggest contract, because the biggest contract is going to be it's such a massive contract, and you're going to get competing bids that are going to be very close. Like the dollars are probably not going to be that far different. So now I think the wooing and all the context and the color commentary around the place you're playing is significantly important. Whereas, 10 years ago, biggest contracts getting a deal. You look at where Cano, like, he didn't give a shit about any of the other things. Just pay me the money I need. And for a guy like him, like, those dollars really were significant. And I don't think you're getting as many lopsided offers anymore. I think a lot of the top offers are going to be around the same price.
Yeah, I think when you are discussing players like Ohtani or Soto or Judge, the dollars have to be in a certain margin % of one another, because for the teams to compete for that guy, that's what they have to offer. And then, like you said, for all those other things that come into play, it's where does the player want to play? I'm going to get my money. Where am I going to play?
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the interview with Teacher Man 1986. It's about 25 minutes long, and then Scott and I will be back to react to a few things.
All right, guys, excited to introduce our next guest. We haven't had a ton of guests on recently, but Richard Schenck, who you can find him at TeacherMan1986 on X or Twitter or whatever we're calling it these days. It's been a few years. I look back in my DMs, Richard, and I think it was 2018 was the last time we spoke. We had you on the podcast. It was right after you had started working with Aaron Judge, and we're at a point where you could talk about it a little bit more. So it's been a few years, and I thought it would be a great time to come back and circle the wagons, talk a little bit of hitting. Obviously the Yankees have a new hitting coach. Looks like you've been working with another Yankee in Anthony Rizzo, which makes a lot of sense given the relationship with Judge as well. But excited to have you on and talk some ball. Welcome back to the show.
Glad to be here.
So, just for everybody listening to the show, I think kind of starting from a little bit of the beginning, giving your background and understanding your hitting philosophy, I think would be a really good place to start, because, I think you've obviously worked in 2016 when Judge came up. It's well documented. He struck out at about a 50% clip. He started working with you in the off season, came back and seemingly has become the hitter that Aaron Judge is today. significant difference in the way that he's hitting, the way he approaches, the way that, how long his bat is in the strike zone, and the variables in the amount of mistakes that he can make with still having productive at bat. So would love for you to just kind of talk, give some brass tacks in how you approach hitting, and then how that relationship evolved.
Okay. Basically what I teach is what I call launch quickness. The time between you decide to swing and you actually launch the swing is the most critical time in a hitter's swing. And most people, after they decide to swing, but before they can swing, they have to load a little more. And that was Judge's case before I met him. I call that slop or slack in the system. He wants to swing, but he has to load a little bit more before he can swing. Currently, and after Judge started working with me, he can now swing instantly. The loading is done all before the decision to swing. There's no loading left to do after the decision to swing. So at the moment you decide, you can swing. A lot of players, they can't do that. They want to swing, and then, by the way, they're very fast, but they want to swing, but they have to load some more before they can actually pull the trigger. And that challenges them with the fastball, and so they have to cheat a little bit, and then they get vulnerable for the off-speed pitch. So when I can get a hitter to launch instantly, he's going to reach his potential.
It's interesting. So how do they do that? So specifically, when you're talking about how a player is able to make that decision, see the ball, hit the ball, but they're already in a position to hit the ball at that point, right? You're seeing the ball, you're making the decision that you do want to swing. But what you're saying is now this player is in a ready position, is loaded, and is ready to spring. And I know you have some of the things that you teach is that coil in the hips, if I'm correct, and just making sure that they're loaded so that there's an explosion happening. But also the bat seemingly gets into the zone on plane a lot further back than most. So, I think the best way that I've described it, outside our conversations on the show with Andrew here, talking about Judge, is that he's got a lot more room for error with whether he's ahead of a pitch, behind a pitch, if it's a fastball, if it's an off-speed pitch, he's got more room for error because his bat is on plane. So a lot of those foul balls that you might see from other guys, he's actually keeping them fair inside the pole at Yankee Stadium. So can you just talk about how the body is actually doing that and getting these guys ready?
There's two or three elements involved. The first one is the hands themselves have to instantly torque the bat. Every ball that any hitter has ever hit hard, the bat whips in front of the hands. So if you torque the bat instantly, which sends the barrel rearward first, it will whip out in front of the hands before the hands move in space independently. Most hitters move their hands forward and then the bat snaps. Well, that forward move of their hands before the bat snaps is slack or slop in the system. The swing actually starts the moment the hands snap the bat, whether it happens back here, or here. At some point, the bat pivots around the hands. And if you have to move your hands forward before that happens, you've got a delay in your swing. So the first element is we have to snap the bat. The second element is we coil our hip in such a way to twist our rear leg. And so we end up with a tug of war or a stalemate going on between our leg and our hip. The leg is twisted, but as you're going forward, it wants to go forward, but your hip is coiling, which holds it back. And then when you snap your hands, your torso is going to tilt a little bit, and that leg is released. So you get a simultaneous hand snap and a release of your leg at the same moment at decision.
That's a great description. Thank you. Is what you just described? Is that a different philosophy than what you're finding out there to be other, good hitting mechanics? Like, is your philosophy and what you just described much different from, call it, the norm of hitting mechanics?
There aren't other good hitting mechanics. This is the only one.
But are there I mean, are there players? I mean, sure, there's players throughout baseball history and then playing baseball today that don't do that, but still have success. Or you're saying they do that? Any hitter that has success is following roughly those, that sort of path with the bat.
There are several elements in being able to hit. Well, number one, your vision. Number two, your fast twitch. Number two, your mental, your approach, your swing. There's other things involved. There are hitters that are super athletes that can athlete the game with poor mechanics. Okay. Mm-hmm. My opinion is all the great hitters, all the Hall of Famers, not only were great athletes with great vision and great fast twitch, but they also had the snap swing. They also had the suddenness of the launch. So if you look through your rosters on the big leagues, you've got your best hitters, your okay hitter, or your next best hitters, your okay hitters, and your poor hitters. Of all those variables I just mentioned, they've got a different permutation or combination of those things. But the great hitters all swing the same. They all have launch quickness. Some people make up for their loss of launch quickness with their fast twitch.
Right.
But they're never going to be as good as the guy with fast twitch and launch quickness.
And then you could also probably see a steeper decline when those fast twitch start to decline. You start to get older as a player. Athleticism starts to wane, and then your mechanics are not there to back you up.
A player like Nelson Cruz, who was a really quality hitter into his 40s, he has outstanding mechanics. Got to play a long time because of the mechanics.
Mm-hmm. Is there anyone in today's game or in recent baseball history other than Bonds, because I know you and Scott talked about Bonds, and obviously Bonds, one of the greatest hitters of all time. Is there anyone else that you sort of look at their mechanics and say they are doing it the correct way? They have really pure mechanics?
Yeah, a lot of them. When I studied Bonds, I started looking at Manny and Pujols and Adrian Gonzalez and Mickey Mantle and Joe DiMaggio and Ted Williams. And the bottom line is they're all doing the same thing from launch to contact. They get themselves loaded in such a way that they have what I call launch quickness. Mike Trout's very good. There's a lot of great hitters.
Sure.
There are a lot of okay hitters, and then there are a lot of not so good hitters. I think it's very clear that you can see what the great hitters do compared to the not so great.
How do you, as you're one, I know you're working, obviously it's been well documented that you're working with Judge. I didn't know that you were working with Anthony Rizzo, and I am curious as to how long you've been working with him, because he was having what seemingly was a very good season up until, that collision, the injury that happened. And, he had the concussion symptoms that seemed to linger on. Is working with you a reaction to that, because some of his, reactionary senses, or, things from the aftermath from the concussion symptoms have affected quickness, and now, he's focusing on more of those mechanical opportunities to get quicker to the ball?
Over the years, a lot of Aaron's teammates have come with him to our workouts, and they want to know what he's doing, why it works, etc. In spring training of 22, Anthony came with him for the first time, and Anthony asked me to help him stay back. Hitters have to stay back and launch from their rear leg. They can't shift their weight first and then launch. That's a slop move. That's a time move that they don't have launch quickness when they do that. So he asked me to help him stay back, and we worked a lot through the 22 season, and he hit 32 homers, came back to where he should have been. And he was off to a wonderful start in 23 before the concussion. So he's doing a good job of staying back. He's doing a good job of swinging the bat, and his production is good.
When you obviously continue to work with Judge and Rizzo comes along, do you have any communication at all with team hitting coaches, or are you sending any passing any information back and forth? Because obviously you have the staff on the Yankees who are also there to be hitting coaches throughout the season and everything.
Right. I don't have any contact with any Yankee hitting coach.
No, and I wasn't asking for specifics. I was just, curious, if, they obviously can see, who's working with you, and, it would seem like it would be beneficial to share information, but it doesn't seem like that's the case.
I also work with a Tiger named Kerry Carpenter, who was a 19th round draft pick and came to me in February of 22 and then hit 30 homers in the minors, and now he hits third or fourth for the Tigers. I am surprised. First of all, I don't want to be hired by the organizations, but I am surprised that no Tiger and no Yankee coach or general manager or player development player has ever picked up the phone and called me and said, "What the hell are you doing?"
I agree. I'm not asking, for you to divulge secrets of communication with them, but I'm shocked they haven't at least had conversations with you to try and understand, what you're doing for these players, or at the very least, if you see, Judge go into a slump or someone go into a slump throughout the season, for the staffs to be like, hey, what are you seeing here that we can help, fix this guy?
It seems like it's happening from the player side, right? Because you've definitely gone in season. I've seen you talk about that, where you've gone in season to work with Judge. I don't remember which year it was, but it seems like the player, that even if there is a knowledge transfer that's happening in any capacity between, what's happening in your gym compared to the New York Yankees, it's happening with the players as the conduit.
Did you say something about working with him in season?
Was it? Yeah. I don't know if you had worked.
You made it sound like I've only done that once. I'm with Judge every 10 days to 2 weeks for the last 7 years.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
During the season.
Okay. And are you going to him usually when
I go to him? I'm in New York a lot. I've met him in Seattle. I've met him in Anaheim. I've met him in Detroit. I've met him in Houston. I've met him in Baltimore. I've met him in Boston. In 22, first of all, before 22, I would meet Aaron every time he wanted me to come. He would call me and say, "Rich, can you meet me in New York? I'm struggling." Or, "Can you meet me in Detroit? I'm struggling." But in 22, before the season started, we just decided to schedule it. We put it on the calendar. This is when I'm going to meet with you. And what that did is it maintained him. He never struggled. We kept him tuned up the whole year. And of course, he hit 62 homers.
I was going to say, he had a pretty good year in 22.
That's true, and it's shocking to understand that you're seeing him as frequently as you are, and still no conversations, even when you're out there traveling, with the hitting coaches and any of the coaching staff on the New York Yankees. You'd think that by accident some of those conversations would happen, especially with the way that the Yankees have struggled over the last few years with bat to ball skill and getting away from the three true outcome, which has plagued this team now for since before Judge.
It's my opinion that if any organization would ask me to consult, I don't want to be their hitting coach in uniform in a dugout somewhere, but if any organization would ask me to consult and teach their teachers, teach their coaches, and I would roam from their A to AA to AAA to MLB teams regularly, they would be an offensive juggernaut. They wouldn't even have to draft pitchers. They could hit so well that everybody would want their hitters that they could trade for the best pitchers. They would have so many of them.
Yeah.
Well, the Yankees have a new hitting coach, a guy that James Rosen, who's been in the organization in the past, seemingly has a relationship with Judge, from the past as well, and it's looking like Judge's opinion is being very well heard throughout the organization and all the things that they're doing. So I am curious, and I'm wondering if that lack of communication may change with kind of a new regime, I guess, on the hitting side, and understanding that there are a couple guys now that I guess Rizzo's been working with you since 22, have had a ton of success, are in the heart of the lineup, and are meeting with you. There's no relationship with the new hitting coach either on your side. No conversations.
I've never met him, and I've never had a conversation with Judge about him. I believe he came from the Tigers recently, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And my entire experience with Judge is when he's with the Yankees, and I've talked with Judge about his hitting coaches before, but what's his name? Rosen?
Yep.
He wasn't a Yankee, so we've never talked about him. I have no knowledge about him.
Okay.
So curious, we also wanted to pick your brain just, from a broader perspective on, advanced metrics in baseball and what your opinion of them is, and if there's any specifically that you like to look at from a hitter's perspective to evaluate if what they're doing is working. You know, obviously, if their mechanics are good, you think the proof will be in the pudding. But are there specific statistics that you look to evaluate hitters?
There's none of them that work. The only thing that works is your batting average, your RBIs, your on-base percentage, your OPS. If you're looking at a guy's exit velocity or his launch angle or his rotation acceleration or his time to contact, it's all bullcrap.
Why are there not any metrics that come out?
If you go and look at any minor league organization, almost everybody that they've drafted is a good athlete, and almost everybody they've drafted can have 100 to 110 exit velocity. Some of them higher than that. Every one of them. But the only ones that hit are in the big leagues. So how important is it for you to know that guy hits the ball 105 miles an hour?
Yeah, I think
they can't hit when they get to the big leagues.
No, I'm with you. Like the exit velocity thing, I think was like a flashy new thing because it was possible to track instantly in the StatCast era, and then you see these flashy numbers. You know, Judge has been on the top of StatCast leaderboards. Stanton's always on the top of StatCast leaderboards, but then you look at Stanton's season last year, and like, who cares that he hit 10 balls over 115 miles an hour? He hit 180 on the season, so. Yeah.
He's probably a prime example of the athlete that has the ability to do things with terrible mechanics. And now we're seeing, him degrade because of physical abilities, age, etc.
What I teach, launch quickness, I'm developing an app that will measure that. So back to your original question, that's the only metric that matters. It'll measure the time from when you decided to swing until you launched.
So yeah, there are probably some statistics that are an outcome of what you teach, right? So you see probably more consistency on certain things because of the result, but not necessarily looking at the result as the why. It's what's behind it that is producing these results. Like as Andrew just mentioned, Judge is at the top of the leaderboards, StatCast leaderboards with exit velocity, and it's because he's barreling up the ball more often too, and he's making great contact, and that has to go with mechanics. So are you using any of them to, like, if you see that the exit velocity is low, is that anything? I don't even know if you're looking at it, but would that be a trigger to say, okay, something else is off in the swing mechanics?
I don't have any of those devices that measure that stuff, so I couldn't tell you if his exit velocity was low or high when he hit the ball. I will be able to tell you by looking at the video if he was quick to the ball, if he had launch quickness. And if he's not hitting the ball well, he's not quick. If he's hitting the ball well, he's quick.
And when you're talking about the quickness too, you're talking about that wrist rotation. Do you worry at all the motion of that wrist? Because I've seen online, there's a ton of people that talk hitting, a lot of people that act like they know everything about hitting. As you, I'm sure, know, it's a community that has a lot of back and forth, right? And I've seen some of it, like some of the things that you're teaching seem to be polarizing amongst others. I'm curious as to why they think this way if you're showing the results. And I've seen a couple people point to that motion itself. Do you think that puts a hitter at risk long-term physically by doing that motion if they started at a certain point?
How can this put a hitter at risk? I mean, he's screwing a light bulb in. He's turning a doorknob. It's a very natural feeling. The two forearm bones rotate, supination, or the front arm pronation. There's no injury risk there.
No, I think just Scott's overall question is like, why do you feel there's scrutiny towards what you're teaching in the hitting community?
Well, the best answer I can give you is the people hold their hitting beliefs tight or maybe even tighter than their political or their religious beliefs. And okay. You can't change them. Jesus Christ could come down right now and say, I'm correct, and they'd still say no. That's how how much it's ingrained into their soul.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I
that's fair. I mean, yeah, it's an interesting vertical of social media when you start diving in. I when we first started talking back in 18, when you were working with Judge, I took some deep dives in, and I've been baseball coach on the lower levels, like little league and such, for a long time. So it's always been of interest to me, the mechanical developments of how kids are doing it. So it's an interesting community with a lot of different opinions, but you're right. People are
What's
very
really
rooted in
interesting
what they
to
think.
me, what's really interesting to me is I have never had anybody come to me that I got them to feel what I teach that will then deny it. It's simply undeniable how good it is. And the people who deny it have never felt it. I've never had one person, college pro, good athlete, deny it after they felt it. Now, that doesn't mean they were able to do it in a game yet because they haven't practiced it and perfected it enough. But once they feel hitting a ball the way I teach them it should feel, they say that's the best thing I've ever felt in my life.
Yeah, I was actually curious along those lines. How many people do you work with where it takes a lot? I guess let me rephrase the question. If you've had someone playing baseball their whole life, maybe they've been drafted and they're in the minor leagues, they're 20 years old or something. Like they've been doing something some way, thousands and thousands of baseball swings in their life. How long would it take someone like that to shift and start swinging the way you are teaching?
It's different from everybody. I had a player come to me one clinic in November of 16. He was in the independent league and he happened to get picked up by the Mexican league. He was already 30 years old, I believe, so he's a little old to be a prospect. But he picked it up that weekend and he's hit 290 with 30 homers and 900 OPS every year since. He picked it up in one weekend. I have other people that don't pick it up that fast. I was with Judge 23 times before the season started. We were probably halfway into that before he really started to get consistent with it. One thing's for sure, you've got to get rid of the old habit to make room for the new habit. And hitting is such a reactive event that when that pitcher releases a ball and it's coming 95 to 100 miles an hour, you just react. And if you haven't got the new feeling yet, the old feeling is probably going to be the result of that reaction. So it takes some work.
Right. That makes sense.
Super interesting. Just the approach in baseball, it seems like because it's gotten, launch angle, exit velocity, those are the two that drive me nuts. I'm a big fan of guys that can go gap to gap, guys that can put the ball in play, make things happen in the field, and get some base runners. And it seems like that approach, it seems like that philosophy is starting to come back a little bit. You're starting to see more of these old school baseball guys, affecting the game more, where the analytics is starting to take a further backseat, or at least they're making it a little bit more complementary to the guys that can feel the swing and know how to hit. But you're starting to see the makeup of and construction of some of the rosters go in that way too, so that you're getting more guys on base, and then the power guys can come up and hit line drives. Do you think that the Yankees approach at this point moving forward, since you've worked with some of these guys, that they're getting closer to the right path of, as far as like the way that they're looking at hitters?
I don't really know what's happening with the new hitting coach. I do know that they were trying to make a case that their player development hitting offensive wise was good because they were leading the minor leagues in I don't know what the categories were, but slug or OPS or something, hard hit rate or something. And yet when those players come up the big leagues, they can't hit.
A lot of 4A players is what we call them.
Yeah, a lot of 4A players. They're looking at the wrong numbers. I don't know if that's changed or not with the new guy, but
time will tell.
When you train,
sounds a lot like what someone said to the media recently about looking at the wrong numbers in the Yankees organization. Actually,
yeah. Who would that be?
Great. Well, Richard, really appreciate this, man. Andrew, if you don't have any
Richard, very, very interesting stuff. I was looking at your website as well. There's tons of testimonials on there, not just from the likes of Aaron Judge and Major League Baseball players, but up and down all levels of baseball. So definitely encourage our listeners to go check out the website at the very least.
There's another AA Yankee coming up. I'll let you guess who it is, but he's going to be a good one.
All right, good. I'm gonna start following trends and see if we
Is
start
it
to see some
a
spikes.
physical trend of someone we see in the major leagues possibly playing right field?
I expect
Similar.
him to be a big leaguer.
Okay. Good deal. Well, is he working on your gym too? The guy that we're not going
Yes.
to name?
Yeah, that's what he's saying. Yeah.
That's great. All right. Well, that's very interesting. It seems like that was a good decision on his part, given the stature and physical likeness of someone else who's had a lot of success in the major leagues.
Okay.
Richard, thanks a lot, man. Guys, go check him out. Hitterman 1986. Appreciate
Teacher
the time.
Man.
And Teacher Man 1986. We'll talk soon. Appreciate
All
it.
right. Have a good one.
All right.
Thanks,
See ya.
Richard.
See ya. Thanks, Richard. Appreciate it, man.
All right.
All right, we are back. That was interesting, wasn't it? Interesting. Some interesting tidbits from our guy. What do you think was the biggest takeaway that we talked to him about?
I think significantly the biggest thing coming from him, beyond all of the fascinating hitting stuff that again I nerd out about, is the fact that the man that retaught Aaron Judge how to swing a bat after he had a 50%, close to 50% strikeout clip, 2016 going into 17, and then continued to work with him and produced arguably the greatest offensive season that's ever happened in Major League Baseball, that the Yankees have never had a conversation with the man who taught him.
How is that possible? How is that possible? Like when he said, I was on the road with Judge every 2 to 3 weeks throughout the entire 2022 season, when Judge, like you said, had one of the greatest offensive seasons in baseball, 62 home runs. So this guy is on road trips. He's there every 2 weeks, and not a single person from the Yankees organization is at least having a coffee with the guy.
It's wild. And not only that, it's not just him. He was that video I had seen on Twitter and tweeted it out a few weeks back of Rizzo in the cage with him too. But Rizzo had been there before last year as well. So, that season that we were starting to see from Rizzo before he had the injury and the concussion, that you could look at, he had one of his best starts of his career to a season. And he was in the cage, with Richard as well before that. So it's not like it was just Judge who had the best, season in Major League Baseball history that this guy is touching. He's also touching another player who kicked off extremely well, and has done some really good things at the plate before an injury happened. So I don't understand it, and I don't know if it has to do with the polarizing nature of this, and where he came from as well, because he kind of came out of nowhere. He came by, watching a ton of film. Like if you go back and listen to the interview I did with him in 18, like a lot of this came from watching Barry Bonds film and then trying to identify what is so significant in that swing. And then him spending hours and hours and hours and hours and hours recreating the mechanics of that so that it could be taught, and teaching his son, who was, a catcher in, playing collegiate ball. It's an interesting thing. So I don't know if that played into it, but at the end of the day, who gives a shit how someone got to a particular place? If you are giving results, and in this case, the highest results you can possibly have, how do you not have a conversation when that is such a big area of weakness for your team?
Also,
it's actually Yankees, it's egregiously
negligent. It's negligent.
Yeah.
You're the Yankees. You're attaching yourself to Aaron Judge as your franchise player for the next 9 years. Like this guy's clearly important to Judge. He's his personal hitting coach that he's bringing with him. He's flying him out to Kansas City or to Anaheim when they're on the road so he can meet with them, so he doesn't go into any slumps. Like he talked about how, I met with him every 2 or 3 weeks just to make sure everything's on point.
And originally it was,
as needed,
but then the judge is like, you know what, I just need to stay consistent. And that's,
yeah.
So that was new information to us, right? Because I had seen him talk about that he was, that he had gone out to see Judge before September of I think it was 18. And then the month was out. So I thought it was on a spot basis, but you look at I had no idea he was going out there consistently like that. That's crazy. And meeting him out there on a consistent basis. Meanwhile, the Yankees are like hitting coach, hitting philosophy. I don't know. We're scrambling, and you have a guy here. And I'm not saying you have to bring this guy in as the hitting coach. One, he doesn't even want to do that.
Yeah.
But
what are you doing?
Have him consult. Have him.
What are you doing?
Have a conversation, and maybe layer in some information. Maybe take a different position and identify like what is happening. If Judge trusts him, and now Anthony Rizzo also trusts him, then you should
potentially Spencer Jones.
He alluded to Spencer Jones working in the cage with him. He didn't say his name, but it's Spencer Jones who's working with him. Same body type, same build as Judge. You're looking at a very similar player with biomechanics being very different for I think a guy that big. That's huge. I think that's huge because if he can lock in some of those mechanics that Judge has had success with, you'd think that obviously talent is different in both players. It's not the same. Judge is a freak and an insane talent, but everything we're hearing about Spencer Jones is that he is a very talented kid, and clearly is very serious about his craft, and also having conversations with Judge. Like the fact that he's working there, obviously Judge talked to him. Judge had a conversation about like, I think this could be good for you. And he's listening. So you're seeing some tutelage there with a guy that has a similar body type, and that's exciting. And Yankee fans should be very excited about that because I'm going to be looking at Spencer Jones' season this coming year. He's obviously in AA, but I'm going to have a magnifying. I'm going to be using the living hell out of the MILB subscription and watching Spencer Jones at bats.
Richard did in his way say, if I worked with an organization, they would have such good hitters, they would never need to draft pitchers because they could just trade all their hitters for pitchers.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, whatever. But like, it seems like Judge is starting to get some of the Yankees organization, taking it upon himself to get guys in the Yankees organization to work with this player, work with this coach. And again, we're not saying the Yankees need to hire him or even make him like a paid consultant or anything like that.
No, they should make him a paid consultant. I'm saying
I just think the fact that there's never been a conversation. He has said, I've never had any contact with a member of the Yankees organization or any Major League Baseball organization. He's also been working with Kerry Carpenter from the Tigers system.
And now our hitting coach came from the Detroit organization, who didn't have a conversation with him, had a player there, and apparently has a good relationship with Judge. Like if there's not notes being traded, then it makes zero sense. Like it is negligent at that point. Trade some notes.
Doing your due diligence. Like you talk about doing an analytics audit.
Fly out there and sit in on a session.
Audit what this guy's doing, and maybe you can borrow some things. Like it's bizarre to me, and I didn't expect him to be in with the Yankees organization, but the fact that it's just been complete radio silence is very odd.
There is a club, and where you came from, I think, does matter in sports, and unfortunately, it gets in the way with
actual proof and results. Great.
Yeah, it does. So whether you like the guy or you don't like the guy or you disagree with the way that he's teaching it, I don't actually care about any of that. That does not matter to me. The only thing I am looking at are results.
Talking about it's hitting mechanics. We're not talking. Okay, so I equated this after when you and I were talking. I was like, this reminds me of like the Tom Brady, Alex Guerrero thing with the Patriots. Like, would not allow Alex Guerrero in their facilities. But Alex Guerrero's getting some weird snake oil from somewhere and rubbing it all over Tom Brady's body to make him DH, okay? He's doing shady shit. This guy, all he's doing is talking about loading your hands and getting ready to hit a baseball. You might not agree with it, but it's not shady, okay? It's just fucking hitting a baseball.
But again, if you don't agree with it, you better really analyze and audit your thinking at that point and scrutinize and start poking holes in your own concepts, because all I know is that this is giving results. And maybe there's other people that, he's worked with that the results aren't as apparent. And I understand, like, anybody in the world can take, a few of their people who have done really well, and put them on a pedestal to market themselves. But at the same time, he transformed something to Judge. He changed what Judge was doing and made a significant difference that led to arguably the greatest offensive season that has ever been seen in the modern era that we witnessed. Direct results from that. And if you're not having conversations because of that, What are we doing?
If you're
Common
Aaron
sense
Judge,
department, like right now, stamp it. Just
if you're Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton, can't you just be like, you know what? How about Stanton? Maybe work on some stretching this offseason and come see my hitting guy in Florida for a few sessions. Let's see what we can do.
I think that that would be such a different swing for Stanton. I would be surprised if he would be able to match the results at this point in his career.
Judge, didn't he say it took Judge over 30 sessions before he started to like grasp it?
Judge picked it up relatively quickly, and that's again, yeah, that's muscle memory. But even 30 sessions is like you start to see things. It's all about the repetition and muscle memory and believing in a thing and committing to a thing. So yeah,
go look at Judge's swing in the 2016 season. It's very different. His whole entire leg kick is different. He looks like completely different.
His hips are different and his hands are different. That's the biggest piece.
So
right there.
is it going to be an adjustment for Stanton? Sure, but what's the alternative?
I'm just saying Stanton's
again?
so different. Stanton is so different in the way that he swings that it would be look, he can't get much worse.
Can't get worse than 189.
So, yeah, who knows? Maybe he is. It's obviously spreading through the organization a bit by the guys just talking through it. And if you have Judge, who's now the captain of the New York Yankees, giving this guy an endorsement, I would be very surprised if we're not seeing more Yankees players there. But the fact that the Yankees organization has never had a conversation with this man up until when did we talk to him last week? That's insane to me. Yeah, absolutely insane to me.
I agree. That was the biggest takeaway for me as well. A lot of good stuff in there. Hope you guys enjoyed
Spencer
it.
Jones, man, circle him. This is I'm really interested in this now. And again, like
can we get Volpe in there? Can we get some other? Can we get Glaber in there? Can we get everyone down there just to try it? Just try it out.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I want to see him walking around spring training. That's what I want.
You want Richard to be walking?
Yeah, I want to see Richard. I want to see in the back of a picture. I want to see Richard Schenck in the back of a picture. I just want to see it.
I don't even expect that. Like that. Like
why?
You don't need to.
Because
why? I understand. I understand why some organizations would not be willing to do that. But what I don't understand is at the very
truly
least,
don't understand.
Okay, but what I don't understand is the fact that basically the Yankees and any other baseball team are not doing their jobs as coaches if they are not open-minded to other things that might work for a hitter.
Absolutely.
If you're a hitting coach, what does it matter how a guy hits the ball as long as he hits the ball? If he has his hands low, has his hands high, has an open stance, has a closed stance. Like there's different baseball stances throughout because different things work for different guys. Like the concept that you would just be closed-minded to a hitting philosophy is so counterintuitive and counterproductive to what the game is. Everybody does something differently to try and achieve the same result. And that is okay. Well, and if you're closed-minded to that, you're not doing your job as a hitting coach, as an organization, as a coaching staff, or whatever.
I think a lot of the reason also in the way that he's teaching, the philosophy that he has, is he's very I'm not gonna say he's anti-analytics, but he just doesn't use them. He's old school in the approach of he
doesn't care about exit velocity,
biomechanics.
Okay.
He's
Does
teaching
Judge hit the ball hard?
Yeah, exactly. Exit velocity should be a result of a good swing, right? Like that's what you're looking at. If you're swinging well and you're doing all of the right things, exit velo is going to be one of those things that you can say, you know what, this is working. He's hitting the ball hard. So
he did bring up batting average and RBIs, and I was like, that sounds like that sounds familiar.
Yeah.
And again, I like you said, I don't think he's looking at any analytics. He's looking at the mechanics of a guy's swing.
He said he wasn't. We know he's not.
Right, but like he believe, like as long as the mechanics are good, the results, whether you want to look at batting average, RBIs, WRC plus, OPS, exit velocity, all of those things will be a byproduct of good mechanics.
Correct. Yeah. No, absolutely. There was another piece that he mentioned about. I'm completely drawing a blank right now. He had a. I lost it. Sorry. Good job.
I guess now the illusion is broken that we didn't actually listen back to the podcast
there was a comment that he had made about the actual swing too. It was interesting. He teaches it differently. At the end of the day, like there are little pieces in there that he teaches it differently. And I think when you're looking at how deep some teams are on analytics. If you were to bring in a guy that does not look at analytics and only looks at the way a particular player is swinging and staying in the zone, and has to do with physical, again, biomechanics of the swing, and like where the positioning of the hips and positioning of the hands are, it's counterintuitive to what a lot of teams are doubling down on with the analytics piece. Yeah. And I think that is where conflict arises from, some of the approach here. And again, like you said, there's no reason for you to not be open and open-minded to things that are actually working.
Right. You don't have to adopt them. Not every player is going to work well with that philosophy. That's not what I'm asking. I'm not saying you have to do it this way, because that's too far in the other direction.
I know what I was going to say. The comments that Judge made early before, around right at the end of the season about the Yankees are looking at the wrong numbers. Schenck literally said the exact same thing that Judge said. So I'm like, there's clearly like he's
starting to bleed in.
It's starting to bleed in. Yeah, those conversations are that are happening between him and Judge. Now Judge is talking about them out. So, endo facto, Judge is kind of representing a lot of those the thinking and the philosophy himself with the Yankees organization. And maybe that's it. Maybe the conversations have gone through Judge as a conduit to the hitting coaches, but I don't know how it could possibly ever hurt getting it from the horse's mouth and understanding all of the whys you got to a particular thing. Like that's the most important piece for me, is like, why are you doing this? If you understand the why, then and it doesn't break your brain to get to the end result, then how can you not consider it?
And he does seem like a polarizing personality.
There's no doubt.
And that's probably a factor in all of this too. It's impossible not to bring personal feelings on someone into professional.
But again, he's got Judge's ear, and he's got Judge's ear. I don't know how that doesn't.
He's working with Rizzo, working with most likely Spencer Jones, and who else maybe some other players are going to start to work with him as well throughout major leagues or in the Yankee system. So yeah, very interesting stuff. Thank you to Richard for coming on, and go check him out, Teacherman1986 on Twitter, and also check out his website. You can see a ton of like testimonials from all levels of baseball players. Definitely good stuff. All right. Anything else you want to chat about before we wrap up?
No, that's it. I hope the Yankees get Yamamoto and we were able to react to that a little bit, but that's going to be a big piece. The rest of it, there were some little things that were happening, right? Yankees making some 40-man moves. That was something
the trade, the trade. Yes, we didn't talk about that actually. Let's pull that up. The 40-man roster trade.
So essentially sending prospect
infield. They swapped infield prospects basically. So because the Dodgers needed to clear up
for two
40-man spots. So the Bombers, I'm reading here from MLB.com. The Bombers parted with shortstop Trey Sweeney in exchange for Gonzalez and Vivas. Move that opens up 2 spots on LA's 40-man roster for Ohtani and reliever Joe Kelly. Joe Kelly, whose deals were finalized.
Still
Monday.
effective. So Gonzalez, you could he's a lefty reliever, has from what I've seen, elite ground ball numbers. He's not a big strikeout guy, so he's a contact guy. You could see that they're trying to get cheaper on the left hand side. Maybe that's the instead of Wandy Peralta, a guy like this. So that's interesting. And then the shortstop prospect, they're essentially swapping similar prospects in the pipeline. If you're looking at like how they're being valued. The new guy coming over is more of, and this is something for us to keep an eye on, the Yankees organization and how they're kind of like adjusting their farm system. But he's got, more contact. He walks more. He strikes out less. Interesting thing. Left-handed bat. So, you're starting to see a different makeup and prototype that the Yankees have identified that they don't have in their system that they need more of. And this kid can definitely play different positions. So I wouldn't be surprised. And again, they need some type of plan next year for Glaber in a walk year. If they don't re-sign him, obviously you can go out in free agent market, but a guy like this, if they like him, there's, the ability for him to compete for that second base spot next year too.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do expect Yamamoto to happen before we record next Wednesday, so we'll definitely react to that. And I guess if it happens in the next 48 hours or something, we'll jump on and do an emergency pod. Thank you guys so much for listening, and hope you guys enjoyed the Richard Schenck interview. And we'll be back at you next week.